is one of Hollywood's most intriguing directors. His movies range from blockbusters such as Batman to animated films, as well as modern fables such as Edward Scissorhands and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And his current film, the musical thriller Sweeney Todd, shot here at Pinewood Studios.
In here is where we got some of our Fleet Street sets being built. Nice, grungy, horror movie-like atmosphere. Quite exciting, yeah.
Burton's been making films for over 20 years and was honoured with the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement at the Venice Film Festival. But even though he's one of the most successful mainstream directors working today, he still makes highly personal films, always driven by his empathy with the outsider and fueled by his extraordinary imagination.
Incredible vision and purpose, and he follows what's in his mind.
There's a lot of directors doing dark stuff and fantasy stuff and everything that you could say genre-wise that Tim does, but Tim does it his own way. It's a Tim Burton film.
He's managed to be mainstream without compromising himself, which is a director's dream, and any artist's dream, really.
Tim is full of surprises. That's what I love about him. A little bit like Hitchcock. You never quite know what's going to happen next.
Is he outside or is he just not inside? I don't know. It's difficult to say. I don't think he'll ever be inside, let's say. I think that's for sure. He's one of less than a handful who is capable of art in cinema.
People would say, that's a Tim Burton film. And what do you think they would mean when they said that's a Tim Burton film by the look of it?
Well, I've heard that spoken several different ways, sort of positively and sort of not so positively. So, when I first started, I never really had any feeling about that. And I don't actually try to think about that too much because I sort of feel like I don't want to become a thing. There's that sort of thing that happens, I think, in Hollywood where you sort of become a commodity as opposed to an individual, and I've always sort of fought against that. But I don't think too much about it just because it makes me feel a bit uncomfortable, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's like the word Gothic people throw it around, don't they?
Well, yeah, and it's got so many different meanings. It's the same thing about, a fairy tale. It's like, well, there's in some people's mind, it's a very light story for children, and other people, it's just incredibly dark, almost horror stories. Things, for me, have always had different meanings. Same with the word normal. It's like it's such a disturbing word. They just throw, you're not normal, you are normal, and it's such meanings of words have sometimes complete opposite meanings for me.
He has got an absolute distinctive style, and there's certain that is so inimitably him, and practically every frame of his film is his signature. And there's certain motifs, just off the top of my head, they're like, stripes, mostly black and white, curlicues, Johnny Depp, There's certain things that repeat itself, certain things that come through and repeat themselves, and also it's just his sense of humour, his perspective on life.
There's something deeply poetic about Tim, and there's something deeply poetic about the images that he creates, that he conjures, and that he gives to us as viewers.
Tim Burton grew up in California in the suburb of Burbank, just outside Los Angeles. It's a place which he describes as anywhere USA, and yet his childhood experiences there have directly inspired his creative vision.
The sort of culture that I grew up in sort of this sort of suburban California, and I'm sure it happens all over the world, but it felt particularly strong to me. You know, you go to school and, you know, this person's good at sports, this person's good, you know, the sense of categorization happened very, very early on, and I just always felt it sort of undermined people's individuality and the different sides to people that, you know, everyone has.
You think the ordinariness of the place, the Anyway USA-ness of the place, forced you to
Absolutely.
go in your own
I think
direction?
you had to go internal and you had to go inside your own mind to kind of create that kind of excitement and fantasy that you kind of felt was lacking in the culture.
What happened at school?
I never thought of myself as a strange child. I mean, I liked monster movies and I played in the local cemetery, but most of the kids did, you know. I mean, it wasn't like, it felt, you know, like making little Super 8 movies. It never felt strange, but yet the culture very early on categorizes you, and then you feel kind of bad about it for a while, but then it kind of, you think, well, this is the way it is. So then you get a bit liberated by that. You know, once you're sort of looked upon as strange, then there's kind of a freedom about it. You're able to kind of act, you know, a bit more eccentrically than, you know, the other kids because they've put you in that category.
You did leave home when you were 12, lived with your grandmother, and then you set up in a flat of your own when you were about 15 or 16.
My grandmother told me that I used to leave home even before I could walk. I don't know, so I'm not quite sure what that dynamic was. I would crawl out of the house, or was somebody who would drive away. I'd ask if I could go with them. Early on, I just sort of placed it on the fact that I didn't really get along with my parents, but that's kind of an easy sort of, most people could say that. Even before I was conscious of it, I was just responding against that kind of society. I just wanted out of it. That's why I, you know, when somebody to this day tells me to do something, my immediate flick is to say, I'm going to do the opposite of that. And I just can't get that out of my mind. It's something that was there very, very early on.